Hey everyone, it's Kiki and we're doing another theory video today. Recently, Mob Games on Twitter released a comic strip of a little Bunzo bunny on this sort of Easter themed hunt. I actually found out about this because of one of Terrico's videos, which I will link in the description. Please watch his theories on Poppy Playtime and on this little comic adventure because it does tie in with this video and he has some really good points with his own theories on this and on other games as well. Once again, I want to make it really clear I am not a theorist. I make theory videos every now and then just for fun, but I am very new at it, and many of my theories are more of a response or my own opinions on other people's theories. So please, if I reference a theorist, please go and check them out. Theorizing isn't easy, and they do an amazing job. So shout out to Terrico, who always does an amazing job. I love watching his videos, and I really hope he's feeling better after having the chickenpox. They are not fun. Alright, let's move on to this Bunzo Bunny comic strip. Mob Games actually released it on Twitter. So it just starts with Bunzo Bunny telling us he's going on an egg hunt and he wants us to help him find some secret eggs. We then had the choice of which friend we asked for help. We could ask Bron, Boxy Boo, or PJ Pugapilla. So for this one, the community ended up voting for us to ask Bron for help, which made most members of the community very happy because, well, to be fair, the few times we've seen the other two characters, bad things have happened. Bron tells Bunzo and his bucket, who is named Bucky, that he saw an egg hidden on a catwalk in the game station. So Bunzo runs off to collect the egg, but gets distracted by an eggy smell coming from behind a boarded door. Now if you look closely, this seems to be where Mummy Longlegs was, well, you know what happened to her with this machine over here. But if you look closely, there doesn't seem to be any evidence that Mummy was here at all. I have to agree with Terrico that this seems to be happening before the events of the second chapter. The reason we know that this is the same place, not only is it, the same crushing machine, I've had a few, I've discussed with a few people and they've been like, what if there were multiple of these machines around the factory? If you look at the tiles on the floor when Bunzo's like skipping into the room, singing to himself, the floor tiles are white, blue, and pink. Now, on the tiles on the next two comic strips, you can't really see the floor, but on the parts we can see, it is white, blue, and pink, just like when Mummy was taken. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that this is where 1006 dragged Mummy's body away. So Bunzo runs off to collect the egg but gets distracted by an egg smell coming from behind a boarded door. We were then given the choice for Bunzo to listen to Bron and continue on to the game station or investigate the smell that he's come across. The community chose to investigate, so just like every character that dies first in a horror movie, we go the opposite of where we're meant to be and wander off to find ourselves in a room that I'm certain we've never seen before. If you remember, this is the room where Project 1006, or at least who we assume to be 1006, dragged Mummy Longlegs away through this door, so I think it's pretty safe to assume we haven't been here before. So Bunzo finds an egg high up in a bird's nest. Now I don't think these were the eggs that Bunzo was looking for. He was looking for secret eggs. Now I'm just assuming that he was looking for Easter eggs. We aren't actually given any evidence that he's looking for anything other than regular eggs. This is just me purely speculating. But when I think of special eggs, which is what Bunzo said at the beginning, I assume brightly colours filled with lollies or even toys like with Kinder Surprises. Either way, Bunzo sees this egg high up and we get to help him decide how to get it, so we're given three options. We can stack the boxes, throw Bucky, our little bucket friend, or use the grab pack that is on the floor. Now, a huge number of the community decided to use the grab pack, which seemed like, the most plausible option. So Bunzo grabs the grab pack and pulls the egg down. He was so excited to see what was inside, obviously expecting something fun and exciting like chocolate or lollies or a toy, but he was left shocked and understandably horrified when the grab pack crushed the egg and he saw what was inside. He finds that inside that egg was what looked to be a fetus of a baby bird. Mob Games, seriously. I'm a 22-year-old woman and I was pretty horrified to see that as well. It is not what I was expecting at all. Now, we didn't really get any options here. We could still vote, but all the options were just 3 dots, so I think it's safe to assume that the next slide was happening no matter what we voted. Bunzo is frozen in horror, so we can't make a decision for him. Bunzo takes off running, promising that he will help the bird that he just broke out of the egg, but he accidentally stands on some planks that snap beneath him, causing him to fall very far and hurt himself. We can see in this picture he seems to be in a dark box where there is almost a chute or a slide of some kind above him. After this, we are given another 3 options. We can call for help, wait for somebody to find us, or simply give up. Ultimately, the community decided to call for help, so Bunzo screams, but no one can hear him. He went somewhere that seems to normally be off limits for the toys, so it makes sense that no one is in the area to find him. So unfortunately, even though Bunzo calls out for help, no one finds him. He gets left in this room or this pit, wherever he is, and he's all alone. Now, in the room with him, we can see his crayons scattered about, the little chick that he was carrying, and what I can only assume to be the paper he was drawing on. I'm not really sure what else the white could be. We aren't given any more options or ways to help Bunzo. He is left all alone, but we are given 8 final photos. 1 hour, 12 hours, 1 day, 3 days, 8 days, 15 days, a scribble, so we're not really sure how many days it's been since then, and then the final screen, the end. Now, if we look at the picture that says 1 hour, it is the exact same as the image in the final comic strip where Bunzo is sitting alone. We can see by these little lines that Bunzo seems really scared, or at least it's signifying that he's scared. He is clearly injured. There's a pool of blood from where he landed, and there is blood on his body. Also, I want you to look at the details in this drawing. The colours aren't clear. This looks very fuzzy, like a drawing in crayon, which makes sense, right? He's been carrying around crayons and drawing his adventures around the factory looking for these eggs. But look as the hours and the days go past. Bunzo and the pool of blood are the only things where the colours seem to get deeper and darker. They go from looking like crayons to looking like pencils, and then almost looking like, sketches with a fine liner, and using textures, like brighter colours, and it's more filled in. Also, in the 12-hour image, Bunzo's shadow is very fuzzy, again, like a crayon. But as the days go on, his shadow gets darker and darker, while the writing gets more and more messy. If you also watch Bunzo's hand, you can see he keeps changing crayon colours, which I think is meant to show us that he is the one doing these drawings. In this image, he is holding his blue crayon, and then in the next one, he's holding a red crayon, or maybe it's pink, it's really hard to tell. I genuinely believe that Bunzo was the one drawing these images, and as the days went on and he was getting hungrier and hungrier, it's almost as if he began to see the world in a clearer view. Now, I really want to analyse the Bunzo images. Terrico was asked why Bunzo's head had been ripped open. It is clear that initially, although he had been injured, his head was intact. Terrico believes it was very possible that something was in the room with him, or something has been near him, potentially grabbing at him, considering things have been moved around the room and Bunzo has become more and more injured from when he fell. I have 2 theories on this. The first one is probably the more plausible of the 2 theories. There is a lot of evidence for us to go with Terrico's idea that he's been attacked and someone has been taking pieces from him, or at least having little grabs at him. In every image up to the one titled 1 Day, the only thing that moves is Bunzo. Everything else stays in place. Bucky doesn't move, the comics aren't scattered about, and the dead bird is still in the place it landed. At day 3, things have changed. At first it's just the baby bird and Bunzo's head has been split open, a small bit of stuffing sticking out while he's crying. On day 8, some of the comic strips have been littered about and Bunzo is holding his blue crayon. More stuffing is sticking out of his head as if even more has been pulled out, and his eye is now falling out of its socket. On day 15, Bunzo is now holding his red or pink crayon. Even more stuffing is falling from his head and he's even more slouched over, although the blood on him and around him on the floor seems to be drying up. But on the final day where the writing stops and it just becomes this sort of scribble, Bunzo is gone. I think this is when he dies. Some people say that he ran out of energy to write how many days he's been here, but I have to say I kind of think he was attacked mid-riding. If you look closely, yeah, he isn't much more injured than before. The blood around him is drying, things are still scattered about. But when I zoomed in on the eye that had fallen out, it's bleeding. There wasn't blood on that part of his face before. There was definitely blood on other areas of his face, but most of the blood had dried up or had at the very least stayed the same. On day 15, most of the blood had dried up and paled in colour, much like the blood on the floor, but the blood on his eye is a deep, dark, fresh red blood. Did something attack him before he could mark how many days he had been trapped? I also want to point out that the final drawing we have of Bunzo, it isn't torn. The paper isn't torn like the others. It's covered in blood where none of the others are. Every other drawing is ripped and torn, but this one is perfectly rectangular but splattered with blood. My second theory is a bit more far-fetched. I don't really have a lot of evidence to support it, but I still think it's worth talking about it. I think at the very least it explains a bit more about Bunzo's headspace. So my second theory is that Bunzo actually ripped his head open himself and ripped his eyes out himself. I know this is a bit far-fetched. Trust me, when I first thought this, I thought I was losing my mind, but just hear me out. I want to start off by saying that I'm going off the idea, the very popular idea, that young children are being turned into these toys, their consciousness being transferred into these plush bodies. Personally, in our world, not the Poppy Playtime universe, but our universe, I've seen many young children get frustrated, upset, or overwhelmed. The way they deal with this or express their confusion with these feelings is by grabbing at their head or grabbing at their hair, almost like they have a headache. They aren't understanding how to express their feelings, so they get overwhelmed and try to grab the thoughts racing in their mind. I think this may be what we're seeing Bunzo do. He's been alone for a day and he's scared, lonely, and injured. It would make sense that if he is a small child, he is grabbing at his head trying to calm his fears. He is scared and lonely, but probably also very confused and feeling very guilty for not being able to help the baby bird like he had planned to. Being alone for extended periods of time is extremely damaging to an adult's mind, so we can only imagine the damage and trauma it would cause a young child that is in Bunzo's situation. Terrico also had the theory that these children have almost been brainwashed into believing that they're all cute and fluffy. They don't realize how horrifying they are in these toy bodies and the damage that they're causing people. Think of the little girls in BioShock. They see the world very differently than what's actually happening. It's all bright and happy and beautiful, whereas the reality that they're actually in is a mess and they're harvesting people. I agree with the theory that the toys don't see the reality of what's going on around them. At first, I didn't really think that was the case. Mummy Longlegs seemed very aware of what was going on, even encouraging other toys to hunt us and actively putting us in dangerous situations. But then I had another look at Mummy Longlegs and who she was. She was an adult, someone whose brain had already fully developed. This gave her the ability to know who she was as a person and how she saw the world. The other toys all seemed to have childlike mindsets. I'll break down Mummy Longlegs a bit further. She is fully developed. She is an adult. We know that. She's able to speak to us and use her words very clearly. Although she seems a bit on the crazier side of things, she is intelligent enough and well developed to be able to communicate with us. She knows how to run the 3 games we play in Chapter 2, able to manipulate things in the control rooms and punish the other toys for failing her or disappointing her. She clearly has the ability to lead those around her, much like an adult would to children. After all, she was put in charge of looking after the children in the game section. If you look at it based on manipulating an adult's view of the world versus a child's, it is so much harder to manipulate an adult's perception of the world because they already have their own opinions. They have their own experience and views on how the world is. And by the age that they're an adult, they're able to communicate their perceptions, their opinions, and their experiences. If we look at this from manipulating an adult's point of view versus manipulating a child's, it is much harder to manipulate an adult's view of the world. They already have their own perceptions and their own opinions on life and the world around us, and they already have a very clear ability to communicate with other people. Children are much easier for adults to manipulate. They're able to warp their view of the world and remove their inability to speak by not teaching them proper language skills anyway. This means that as toys, they can't ask for help. Mummy has the ability to say, hey, I'm a human transferred into a toy body, please help us. If all of the toys in the factory were adults with these clear communication skills, it would have been hard to control them all, as they have their own views on the world already, and it's hard to convert them to seeing the world in a way that Playtime Co. wanted them to. But children's minds can be warped and changed into believing what they're told, especially if their experiences in the world were limited to Playtime Co. and their experiments. By manipulating the children from such a young age, they were also able to take away the children's ability to communicate properly. All the other toys, their voices have been replaced with screeching or growling. If they try to tell us what's happening, their words come out as terrifying sounds that make people fear them, not feel empathy for them. Look at the 4 other characters we verse. We deal with Huggy Wuggy in Chapter 1, the Bunzo Bunny that's in Musical Memory, the Mini Huggies in Wacka Wuggy, and PJ Pugapilla in Statues. Huggy Wuggy in Chapter 1 doesn't start out aggressive at all. He's just standing there pretending to be a statue, watching us. He even gives us a key to help us progress further. As we venture further into the factory, we can often see Huggy watching us. Initially I thought he was hunting us, but maybe he's playing a game that we're all very familiar with, hide and seek. We go running around the factory, and if we stick with the mindset that Huggy is a child that was put into a toy body, and with the theory that he doesn't realize how dangerous he is, he could be playing a game of hide and seek, trying to find us through the factory. Or maybe he thinks we're trying to find him. He does disappear when we turn the lights on, almost like we're counting in the dark while he ran away and hid. Maybe his mindset is that we found him when we were getting the red grab pack hand. Once we find him, he counts and waits to find us. When we see him next, he doesn't run at us like he's being aggressive. Yes, if we let him get close enough, he ultimately attacks us, but he's only walking towards us, nowhere near as fast as he is when he's crawling through the vents or when he tries to rush at us before we drop him into the depths below. Huggy completely has the ability to catch us when he first sees us when he gives us the key, or when we nearly run into him after getting the Cat Bee toy. If he had ran at us instead of slowly walking, he absolutely would have been able to catch us. But instead, he simply acts as if he found us, walking towards us. Now we're playing chasey or a game of tag. He now has to catch us, and it's only after we begin running away that he speeds up, chasing through the vents like a child would climb through a playground. If he isn't seeing reality, he may have seen this as a fun game instead of a deadly hunt. Now let's look at Bunzo. I do not believe the Bunzo Bunny that we've seen in the comics so far is the same one we face in Musical Memory. To start with, we already have a pretty good idea that the comic happens before we face Mummy Longleg. Considering that Bunzo Bunny in Musical Memory isn't destroyed like the one in the comic, I think it's safe to say it isn't the same. Not to mention, if the comic happened after facing Mummy, then the Bunzo from Musical Memory was already webbed to the ceiling and then disappeared, assumingly taken by 1006. So for this part of the theory, let's assume that the Bunzo Bunny from the comic and the Bunzo Bunny from Musical Memories are 2 completely different Bunzos. Musical Memory is basically just an altered version of Simon Says, with a deadly twist, but Bunzo Bunny isn't really the one that's after us. He's attached to this game, being lowered down while he plays. Honestly, if I didn't know any better about Poppy Playtime, I would assume that this Bunzo isn't even a living toy. He was just mechanic, simply clapping his cymbals as he was programmed to do. The only thing that actually makes me think he is alive is that Mummy lashes out at him for failing his task of killing us, even though he doesn't control the machine lowering him. Think about it, what was his purpose beforehand? The mini Wuggies in Wacka Wuggy originally were all tied back so they couldn't hurt the children. It doesn't make sense for the Bunzo in Musical Memory to be murderous towards it. The mini Huggies in Wacka Wuggy originally were all tied back so they couldn't actually get to the children. So what is Bunzo's place in Musical Memory? What was he there for the children? He certainly wasn't killing them if they failed their sequences. Then we face off with the mini Wuggies in Wacka Wuggy. This game is just Whack-A-Mole, but with the mini Wuggies instead. Again, a very common game played by children in arcades. The Huggies, I believe, are simply doing what they're told. Once again, they're probably starving and they're trapped in this one place. If we're to believe that they don't see things as they really are, they could simply see this as a game. I'm sure we've all seen those videos where kids jump on an adult clinging to their arms and legs. Who's to say they aren't seeing things this way, as children just playing with an adult? Then there's PJ Pugapilla. Once again, we're just playing musical statues. When the music is playing, you move. When the music stops, you freeze. There really isn't much more to explain there. PJ Pugapilla doesn't come after us until we start playing the game. He understood the rules. He's playing a game just like a child would. Look at another thing that Mummy shows that's different than the others. If we assume that the cardboard cutouts are just pre-recordings done by humans, then the theory that all the other toys apart from Mummy are children makes a lot more sense. Mummy Longlegs is the only toy we come into contact with that we've had a conversation with apart from Poppy. We know Poppy has a voice box in her. We saw one covered in blood in the VHS tape. Apart from Poppy, Mummy is the only other toy that can communicate with us effectively. All the others grumble and growl and snarl. Poppy has her own voice box, potentially not even one that was hers when she was human. But if we're to believe that she was the first successful experiment, obviously things are going to be different. Child body or not, she may have had the ability to communicate before she was turned into a toy. She may have been the first child experiment and then they moved to adults before they realized that adults were harder to control. Potentially, this is why Project 1006 wanted Mummy's head, to take her voice box to use for himself. If we go back to the theory that I said before about how Bunzo may have been damaging himself, ripping at his own head and clawing his eyes out, we can see how this would be possible if he realized that the way he saw the world had been changed. First, it looks like Bunzo literally cried his eyes out. He had eyes, and on day 3 he is crying. He's clearly distraught, but the next image we see on day 8, he isn't crying anymore. He doesn't even look scared. He just looks like he's given up, with his eye hanging from his head. He's cried his eyes out, the only thing he can think to do, and he's given up, no longer having the energy to fight. He's giving up, his writing's getting worse and worse as he starves. But this may have also been a metaphor for how he came to realize he was a monster. He realized that things were scary. He was scary. The world around him was scary. He killed a baby bird and has ended up in a dark hole all alone. Bunzo's eyes being removed may have been a way of signifying that he realized he cannot trust what he sees, so he removed what was causing this distorted view of the world. He gave up the idea of being a cute little bunny, and he no longer wanted to see the world that had been fabricated to trick him. In the comics he drew, he was cute and fluffy and friendly, but in the final image he's a monster, his features being replaced with scary images, his buck teeth replaced with sharp teeth that could cause serious damage. The cute innocent Bunzo bunny is gone, and the hungry monster is born. So that's kind of it on my Bunzo bunny theory with this this little slideshow, I guess. Please check out Terrico's videos. I've linked his channel down below, and anytime I referenced his videos, the video I was referencing is in the video at those points. So please check out his Poppy Playtime theories. They are really, really good, and they do tie into a lot of the theories that I come up with. Definitely go and give him a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Make sure to look after yourself, eat, drink water, take meds if that's what you need to do, and keep an eye on this channel if you want more theories. And again, keep an eye on Terrico's channel. He's always bringing out theories, and wish him luck considering he is recovering from the chicken pox. So once again, thank you everybody so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. I will be doing some other theories. I did do a reaction video to the restricted restoration MP4 that Mob Games released on April 22nd. In the reaction video, I not only reacted to the video, but I also dropped out a few little theories that I have based on that video. So if you want to check that out, I will link that at the end of this video. I may expand on the theories I came up with on the spot during that video, if that's something you guys want to do. But if I don't do it, definitely check out Terrico's channel. I'm sure he's going to cover it as well. So once again, thank you everybody so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye everybody.